Thank you everybody for being here today. We've got a great topic and a great special guest with us. And if you're anything like me, you're just learning about Generation Z. I was personally just getting caught up on the millennials, and now I've got a whole new subject to learn. But here's a few interesting facts. So they're born between 1996 and 2015. They make up a quarter of the US population, and they're the oldest are just now graduating college. And already they have $143 billion in buying power. So it's pretty huge. And here with us today is someone very special who will be sharing her unique perspective with us and her own journey as a Gen Z. Not only has she been working with some of the biggest tech companies in the world, she herself is a Gen Zer. And am I nervous to have somebody much smarter than me that's 15 years old? Absolutely. So Isabella Grandic is a 15-year-old innovator at the Knowledge Society, an initiative designed for young people who want to create the future and change the world using emerging technologies. Just a small little challenge they're working on.
Yep.
So thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So why don't we just looking at how this is all changing for us and why is this demographic unique, and basically, why should everybody care, especially from an enterprise perspective. They've experienced big change in their lifetime. So if you think about it, what's gone on between that time period, politically, socially, environmentally, economically, you've got things like ISIS, Obama, Sandy Hook, marriage equality. There's just so many things going on and so fast. They're the first generation born with a cell phone and a keyboard in their hands, never know anything different, and they really sincerely don't remember a time before social media, internet streaming, and all of that stuff. So this really makes this generation totally different.
Yeah.
I guess, Isabella, is this resonating with you?
Totally. I think for me, I don't really care about where I throw my digital data and things like advertisements and stuff, because I've just grown up with it. And I expect companies like Amazon to know who I am, because I've just grown up in this digital era and I just throw away my data all the time just for a better outcome, like recommendation systems. And yeah, one of the things I really care about are these big problems, because I'm growing up in a time where marriage equality really matters, and where we have rising people, women's rights movements. So.
Well, sound like a marketer's dream as well. So, and the motivations are different, and I'm really learning that actually through this whole process. They have definite traits, and the things that they consider, and please always keep us honest here, but fiscally responsible. They're very hardworking, independent, determined, multitaskers. I think I heard you say entrepreneurial is a really big trend with you and your peers, and certainly progressive. So the big question is, what speaks to this influential audience, and how do we really start to understand them and inherently start to market and provide great services? So I think there's a few key drivers that we really have to consider when we're approaching this. And I know a lot of people on the line today are here because they have programs and campaigns they want to start. It starts with technology sometimes, but of course it always has to start with what are the real economic drivers for this group? And their expectations are really high. And I think that these are the, if you want to take notes of the things to keep track of, first thing is they want real-time access. So relevant information, it has to be real-time, has to be fast. We see a lot of small companies doing this well, but it's not reserved for that sort of just small company. I think, and you'll hear from Sheetal later about native cloud first and just being able to use the infrastructure that's available more quickly. They've got more resources that are available to them, such as event streaming, location mapping, and this really plays into real-time access. A huge thing is personalization. So we know that targeted messages drive better results. Statistics would say 10 to 30%. It could be even higher than that depending on the relevancy of the topic that we're talking about. And they're really looking at, I want a user-first experience versus a business-first experience. So are you speaking to me is really, I think, a common thread. And the reward for that, if you could achieve it, is that they're willing to pay more for products and services. And that really, if you can highlight their individuality and express their values, we've got something that's going to resonate. It's no secret, peer influence is huge. Gen Z, as I mentioned, it's a social media world, and they're checking out Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it might be, to really crowdsource information. And they're very driven by also celebrities and influencers, and looking at everyday people just like themselves, and you want to sort of try to integrate with that, I think is a common theme. And then the flip side of all this is, from the business perspective, is the cost saving in the insight. So can we really take all this information and learn from it, whether it be in the physical world? Do I really need all of this space? How do I change my space? to the digital world and basically use the data to make better decisions. Last but not least is the seamless integration of experience. So, we don't want this friction when I leave my home and I am in a digital experience and I go into a building and it feels like it's changing, from my mobile device to a kiosk to a website. They should all feel the same. And I think, Sheetal, you were talking the other day about, if I leave my house watching something on Netflix, I want to pick it up on my phone and pick it up.
I look for it to pick up back on my phone. I get back to my desk. If I got some free time later and I want to watch it at my desk, it should just pick right back up, and it does that. And I come, that's something that I think users are starting to demand in all their experiences. That's a great Netflix type experience, but you want to do that even if you're filling out a form and you stop halfway through and you want to pick it up on a different device later on that night and do not have to go redo all that. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And it all sounds easy when we're talking about it, but I think part of the conversation today is how do I make that work? From the foundational perspective, how do I develop for that? How do I have the infrastructure to support that? And we're going to cover a lot of that stuff too. So with that, these are the key themes you want to keep in mind as we go through the presentation today. So maybe I'll turn it over to you for a second there, Sheetal.
Yeah. So there's some very cool insights that came out from our research and the focus groups we held at TribalScale. Here's a few key highlights that we have. I never use cash. I always use Apple Pay. The task of having to pull out your wallet is annoying. It's such a hassle. Isabella, what's your experience with that statement?
Totally. Cash is just difficult, and it's so much easier to use Apple Pay. And I think something that a lot of Gen Zers, people my age, are really looking forward to are these seamless experience, or having things that are easier, and Apple Pay is just one of those things. So it definitely resonates.
And then I always do my research before purchasing a product or going on vacation or booking an Airbnb. I usually find out about things through social media.
Yeah, social media is so prevalent and it's almost so difficult to ignore it. And also for the research, for me, the companies I like are companies like North Face, where they're producing really cool clothes, but it's also they're investing in environmental companies, or like Goldfish, for example, has a lot of campaigns for LGBTQ rights or other types of rights. And I think we have so many flashy things trying to get our money, and we want to invest where there's these big problems, because we're growing up with so many problems in the world that we want to put our money where the companies are.
Where it's more meaningful.
Yeah.
Okay. And then McKinsey said 4 core Gen Z behaviors are all anchored in one element. This generation's search for the truth. Gen Zers value individual expression and avoid labels. They mobilize themselves for a variety of causes. They believe profoundly in the efficacy of dialogue to solve conflicts and improve the world. Finally, they make decisions and relate to institutions in a highly analytical and pragmatic way.
I think Gen Z, like Chris described them as very entrepreneurial, and we're seeing that more people are interested in influencers supporting products rather than getting bigger celebrities, and it's really this sort of niche where we want to be our own individuals. A company that I think does it really well is Nike. They make such bold statements, and that's really attractive because just do it. It's very let's do our own thing and then discover our own little niches. So yeah, definitely this resonates as well.
Have you seen that commercial? It's literally 4 minutes long, the soccer one.
Yeah.
It's an incredible, and I think it exactly speaking
or even
to
like even Kaepernick, let's go controversial and be on one side of the fence here.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so shifting gears just a bit, giving this sort of, how does this look in the real world in terms of digital physical mashup? And one of the areas that both JibeStream and TribalScale work in is hospitality, and the typical things that we would start with would be things like wayfinding. You get a complex building, how do I get from point A to point B? Certainly hotels want to be able to speak to people based on their location. Hey, you're walking past a spa, there might be some sort of offer there, something happening. Where are my friends right now? So location sharing. These are all the sorts of things that are happening, and I'd say it's just starting. And there was an awesome conversation, very timely, just about a week and a half ago, between Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and Marriott CEO Arne Sorensen, talking about how the digital transformation is happening and how deep and how broad it is. And that's really Marriott's message, is that it's happening fast and it's happening really wide. Customers want to be able to communicate with the staff in real time. We're seeing a lot more messengers, sort of tools happening. They want people to know who they are without having to ask who they are. What are my preferences? What kind of rooms do I like? And so, Satya said to Arne Sorensen, where do you start? And I think the correct answer, of course, was start with the data. You got to understand the data there is a lot of data, and I think that's the next sort of evolution as well. Is there's so much data. How do we crunch that data? How do we turn it into a personalized experience so that we are very relevant when we talk to people? And that's the whole customer side, but there's a whole second side to this, which is, in my opinion, where a lot of the ROI starts, is the operations. It's as a associate or an employee at the hotel, it's much easier for me to have all that information. I can do a better job. I can say, hey, Isabella, sorry about your room being late. Here's your favorite meal on us, and we know what you like and what you don't like. And then, when it comes to using that exact same infrastructure, so how I shared my location and how I was able to get directions can now also be for maintenance workers. I've got 12 things to do. What's the fastest way or the highest priority way? And, so that's the whole point, is use that same infrastructure to not only have, wayfinding and, service-oriented things, but like turn over your whole operations as well. Sheetal, you've also done a lot of, I know you work with Carnival and been in hospitality a while, so what are you starting to see out there?
Yeah, let's take the cruise ship example, right? They traditionally didn't have internet connection. You're out in the middle of the ocean. Connectivity is like little to zero. But they've started enabling Wi-Fi and they've started putting in connectivity because travelers are wanting to have the digital and physical all blend together, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. It makes their traveling easier. Imagine opening up your app. You're able to see your trip's itinerary. You're immediately able to book an excursion. You know what time you're getting back on the ship. You know where your family is. You can message with them, and then also you start getting recommendations for restaurants and where you should go, what you should do, and that's what customers are looking for. They're looking for an easy way on how the digital could actually enhance their experience while they're actually living the time of their life on a great vacation.
Yeah,
it goes back to the expectations have changed. So if you were to say 10 years ago that someone would be freaking out on an airplane or on a cruise ship that the Wi-Fi wasn't working, that would be absurd. But now it's legit. People want to be connected, and also you've built your whole sort of experience for them around being connected. So again, you've got to really make sure that...
You and I were joking around the other day about imagine going back to a 14.4 dial-up modem and see what life would be like.
Yeah, exactly. And we do remember that, by the way. All right. I'm sure we've all experienced, some sort of digital directory or wayfinding in a mall. That's pretty, widely out there. We've been doing this 10 years, and that's exactly where we started in the mall space. And same as sort of the other industries, wayfinding navigation is certainly one of the first use cases. But things are getting a lot more sophisticated now, and this is really because of the ability to have location awareness combined with real-time information. So as an experience that we talk about coming from the, sort of outdoors to indoors, we can now create, from your home, literally, where are you going? We don't give you the address of the mall. You say, hey, I want to go to Zara inside the mall, so we get you to the closest parking lot. Maybe it's a reserved space for you. And then, you can seamlessly get yourself there and also back to your car again afterwards. So on a technical level, the way this all works is that, on a JibeStream map, they're broken down to objects and layers. They all have an external ID, and this is a key thing. Is that so if we have an external ID associated for every layer and object, we can associate that with a third-party system, maybe the parking system or a loyalty system or something like that. And now we can start to give real-time updates, so it's happening maybe just like Waze when you're driving in your car. So Isabella, I'm sure you've experienced these sort of things, but what do you think's missing right now in, say, the mall experience?
Yeah, I think there's so many things. For example, I really don't like shopping because it takes so much time. You go to a store, you try on a bunch of things, and you try on 10 clothing items and none of them fit. Or you walk in, you have to figure out what size you are. I think in the future, I want to walk into a store, I want them to already know what size I want. I want them to know exactly, so I don't have to scrummage for everything, know how everything will fit right away. I think definitely, I have trouble navigating in malls still, which is just, I guess it's a me problem. But I think when experiences become more personalized, it's more exciting. We were talking about personalization before. I think for the mall experience specifically, I want them to know who I am walking into an Aritzia or Zara or whatever. I think that's definitely missing from the experience, and just making it faster so it's more of a experience or adventure rather than a burden.
So you'd be delighted and not creeped out if you walked into a store and someone said, "Hey, Isabella, I got your stuff."
That'd be awesome.
Okay. And you'd opt into that.
Yeah.
Good to know. All right. So when it comes to the last example of the sort of real world use cases, retail branches typically hasn't been something that JibeStream has really focused on or had a drive for. I think that's changing. Sheetal, you've definitely had a lot more experience today in financial services. So what are you seeing there?
Yeah, I mean, look at the use cases. As you go in and want to be more customer facing, and then as things move more and more digital, how do you as a financial services organization actually bring that personalization? And so imagine, you book an appointment online, you show up, you go meet your advisor already knows, has your portfolio ready, has done their homework. There might be some sort of data segmentation that actually gives the advisor or the financial planner that you're meeting some personal information about you, segments you so that they know, hey, these are the types of products or services that we offer that are going to be of interest to you, and then be able to facilitate you in a much more personalized way. That's the first thing. At TribalScale, we've also been creating apps for like leading insurance providers and that do benefits, provision, retirement savings, and more. And anybody can do And these days, anyone can do financial planning on the go. There's a ton of awesome robo-advisors out there. There's very cool ways of gamifying your financial portfolio to make it fun, make it interesting, not something scary you don't want to go into that a lot of people feel. And so as you start doing that, you actually start becoming and having an affinity to that financial services provider you have. So, having on-demand, on-the-go financial planning is something I think all of us need. It'll put us in a better shape for our future financially, and B, also it starts showing us the data so that we could go and make more wise decisions. Let's not go and spend all our money at the bar down the street. Let's actually save it because, hey, I noticed when I did gamify my savings, it worked, and I started seeing a better future. We also look at internally what financial institutions have how they have to internally change with their workforce, and I call it we change people, process, and tools, and we're helping them with their digital transformation efforts. We're teaching them agile, lean methodologies, how to build have cloud native software development, to build digital products quickly and efficiently. And the reason you want to do that is because you want to be iterative. You want to get products in a very lean way into consumers' hands, capture feedback, learn from them, and then pivot and keep doing that over and over again. And we're helping them succeed in the modern era doing that. And if you look at their workforce also, the smartest and the brightest people in the world don't want to go work at an old insurance company. They do want to work at an old insurance company if they are going to go and solve challenges like this. And so there's a lot of various ways that your transformation has to take place.
Nice. And so I'm supposed to believe also that you're going to check your app at the bar before you spend too much money? Is that what
No,
I'm
I think I'll be cognizant of it because at 2:00 in the afternoon or whatever, I was I saw where all my spending went, and Johnny Walker is probably not the best place for it.
All right, I'm going to hold you to that. All right. So where to begin?
So for many companies, it's hard to pinpoint where to get started. This is a great opportunity for organizations to take a step back and actually look at their roadmap and assess their strategy. We always talk about how to be lean and how you need to be lean. So companies can leverage this shift as an opportunity because by 2020, as Gen Zers, are going to be 40% of all your consumers, you're going to have to shift anyway. So why not take this as an opportunity by capturing for that market and leapfrogging any other ideas you may have had. So today's innovative technology makes it possible for companies to deliver top user experiences and create seamless end-to-end journeys. So definitely, again, we keep talking about looking at the consumer and really figure out how to be more user-centric. We do this with our clients by creating high-fidelity prototypes, but also getting the right products out to market for testing. So, let's get prototypes in consumers' hands, capture their feedback and hear what they're saying. Not necessarily having the big paycheck in the room making decisions of saying this is what I think the market needs. Rather let the market tell you. Since Gen Z is okay with sharing their personal information, as you've been telling us, Isabella, as long as it results in a more seamless and helpful experiences, companies can think of how emerging technologies can help. For example, leveraging IoT location information can allow for seamless integrations of both the physical and digital elements. The companies that choose to adopt modern software development practices like agile, extreme programming, pair programming, design thinking, lean methodologies, and actually put investments in the right infrastructure and tools will be very quickly to be able to respond to Gen Z and the rapid way they change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we're hearing sort of this idea that, we call it pivot, evolve, iterate,
Yeah.
pick your catchphrase. In order to do that, you can't do that without having the foundation below it in terms of the infrastructure. And I think that, you already mentioned a bit of it, but I think it's really important. It's how you develop and how transforming the way you develop and the way you think, I think is a really key element. And, TribalScale, it's really not, this is not the app development shop you're going to send your requirements to and, just wait for it to be built and
Right.
go. It's really, I think using your own words here probably, it's really more an agile transformation. You got to teach people how to get it off the ground. This is about your development process. This is all about changing really the DNA and culture at your site of how you think about innovation. So TribalScale comes in and they'll teach your people actually how to develop. And I think that's when you're going to get the benefit of things like extreme programming and paired programming, things like that. I mean, it just sounds good. Extreme programming. It sounds like you're going to get stuff done fast.
Yeah, you get stuff done fast, but I think one thing just to really quickly add to that, we don't look at it that all the investments that these organizations made over the past 30 years are now useless. You may have a lot of legacy stuff that you've invested a lot of time and money in, and it's not as easy as just lifting and shifting it. But let's look at the right infrastructure and architecture to actually be able to leverage what you've already spent so that you could actually go out and build these high-end experiences, not only for your consumers, but for your enterprise applications. You should have your employees, and as the Gen Zers enter the workforce, they're not going to tolerate this old, archaic enterprise software that you're making them use, but actually be able to bring the right experiences, whether it's be your consumers or your workers.
Yeah, it's a lot different than, call it traditional waterfall development that was, start a project, and hopefully in a year or 2 years when you finish that massive project that it works, it's meeting the needs of what you thought it would do. Like for example, how often are you guys doing releases?
Oh, so this is a great question. At the very least, we work on a weekly build cycle where a client will get a build that's past QA, a build on device, and they got to accept, reject, or change what we said we built, and then we do another week iterative planning. Now we have clients that have put the proper, without getting too technical on this, but have the right CI/CD pipeline where we could start releasing multiple times a day. Yeah. And that's really cool. Being able to change and put your product out there multiple times a day in a better way it's very important. So yeah, that's how we work.
So who's doing it well? I mean, you got a lot of clients. Any great examples of they're using the full TribalScale method to the max and getting the results?
Yeah, we ended up transforming a very large airline in the Middle East. We taught them Lean, XP, Agile, so they could build and release digital products that they have, and give flyers more end-to-end modern experience. I mean, they got a very amazing brand, and their digital wasn't reflecting that. It was actually frustrating. A very high-end product and service that they offer, and this actually, having them work in this way not only let them attract the right talent, change their processes to become more lean and agile, and now their CMO could sleep at night because the experience actually fits with their brand.
Yeah. And JibeStream on the other hand is quite different in the sense that we're not the front end of things. It's the opposite. We're really the infrastructure. It's a mapping platform, geospatial platform, really bringing and bridging the location dimensions, so physical world, digital world. You can think of it as a visualization tool for any data that could live on a map. And it does become a real centerpiece of your solution, but if we do it well and our partners do it well, you're not actually going to notice it much. You only notice maps when they don't work.
Right.
When it's slow or it takes you to the wrong place or something like that. So it really is a key point of that personalized experience, because where you are and what's around you and what's going on right now is really the center of personalization.
Yeah, it's so relevant, yeah.
Yeah, so once you have addressable maps, meaning it's a map that can connect with real-time data, and you've got location system, you really have an unlimited number of use cases you can start to execute on. And I think that, I kind of touched on it earlier, is that it's not just consumer facing. So using that same map and the same infrastructure to deliver things for your security team, your facilities team, there's so many different things. A couple of examples. So Desjardins, on the sort of employee facing side, this is using it both employee and for their operations. They're moving into a brand new space. It is that old financial services company that you mentioned. Hey, they don't want to walk into an office where it's mahogany walls and oil paintings.
Right.
It feels antiquated. So they really spent a lot of time engaging their staff on what's important, what's going to be engaging. They want to attract a whole younger generation. So it was all about better collaboration, seeing what desks were free on certain floors. Hey, I want to find Isabella. Where is she right now? Share my location, all that stuff.
It's very cool. So that's like internally an enterprise using mapping to be more contextual and have a better work experience for their employees.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hot desking has sort of become a hot mess for a lot of people. It's great to have open seating areas and free address, but when you need to find somebody or find a desk, it can be tough. So these tools really help. And on the other hand, places like Mall of America, of course, they're trying to remove friction from the experience, so getting people to the right parking and all the location services. But on the flip side, now Desjardins and Mall of America understand their space. They know what's going on. They know, Desjardins, do we need another floor or not, because they know how it's being used through the analytics. Mall of America can start to, prioritize whether it be maintenance or security or things like that. So that to me is, again, the ROI here, is if you can put in all this infrastructure and then start to use it. We call it a JibeStream profiles, is how we would, different audience would have a different sort of view, which sounds like it would resonate for you.
Yeah.
So now let's take it out of the theory and start to talk, engage our special guest here, Isabella. And we're going to go through a number of different questions. We sort of segmented all of in the themes of what we've been talking about. And we're starting out with personalization. Cool. And so, Isabella, one of the value often attributed to Gen Z is authenticity.
Yeah.
How do you see organizations? How are they responding well to it, mobilizing to this demand? Like, what's your experience so far?
Totally. So yeah, I definitely resonate. Like, for one example that just pops into my head is Domino's. Domino's uses, you can order pizzas with emojis. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so fun. And like these little experiences are just like, oh, cool, this feels like it just feels authentic. It feels like, you're having an interesting experience. And I think like these quirky little things just fit with Gen Z, because we're always looking for personality, niches, like how do you personalize companies? And that's also why Nike stands out to me. It's super bold, super fun. But I think the company that's really doing it best is Amazon. Like for me, like that's the first one that comes to mind because it's so personalized. Like Amazon would never recommend for me to buy diapers because I don't need diapers. I don't have but like it always recommends the books I want to read. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is such a useful, it's easy to use. If I have a cart on my computer and I go to my phone, it'll be like very digitally laced. And I think it works well. And yeah, so definitely companies that personalize are awesome, and also companies that use emojis to order pizza are really awesome.
That is a tall order. So those are the ones doing well. Sheetal, you seen any epic fails out there? Anybody that's tried and failed? Because there is a lot of risk. I mean, that could have gone terribly wrong with the emojis. But
I think the big epic fail that's most recent is Gucci. Gucci put out this ad to go after minorities, I guess, and then they had a person in a turban, and it wasn't someone who would wear a turban or someone who looks like someone who would wear a turban, and they went after it, and it completely backfired. I mean, companies that try to go fake authenticity, it ends up playing badly and backfires. And again, that's just poor research. I mean, it would have been very easy to grab a couple people and just be like, "What do you think of this? Yeah, what's the feedback on this?"
So if the world's consumers of Gen Z are demanding more engaging, personalized, relevant experiences like emoji pizza, what can legacy enterprises do today to respond to these changing expectations?
I mean, I think I agree with the Marriott CEO. Businesses need to take all the data that they have and apply that first. That's the first. The expectation is for a completely seamless experience now across any device that you're having, whether it's a show on your TV or switching to your handheld device, things like that. I think also, having things like loyalty programs, like hotels and airlines have. I mean, if you take the example, integrating technology in the hospitality industry and making gamification, on the cruise ship, and I ensure that vacationers are having the experience they're looking for. That's something that brings me more loyal.
Yeah.
That makes me want to be with that brand because I'm having that experience. In the hotel industry, we see hotels searching for real experiences, like an Airbnb experience, something different.
Right.
I love when I stay at a hotel and that hotel has been catered to the surroundings that are around me. You know, I was in Nashville a little while ago staying at a hotel.
Yeah.
And I won't mention the chain, but it is a chain, and they got very cool boutique hotels. But every one you stay at is different because of the experience. They actually are contextual with the area that's around you. So you need to be authentic in that way. And then it's still an opportunity for like hotels to think about how they personalize and do digital and physical much better. And you know, cookie cutter is not always best. You know, we are all walking around with devices in our pocket that know more about us than my wife probably knows about me.
That's a whole other webinar.
That's a whole other webinar.
We'll host that with your wife.
But it's true. I mean, these devices know so much about us. How could we leverage the right information and give back a positive experience and not exploit that data?
Right, and you were saying something that really resonated with me about like the meshing of experiences, how we really notice when it's like when Netflix doesn't rewind it doesn't continue the show, but we don't notice when it does go right. And I think that just means the standards are higher and higher.
Exactly.
And we have to start like implementing those. Yeah. So how can companies balance scale and mass production with these like personalization? And what about ethics and concerns over sustainability? Like I mentioned, Generation Z is reportedly willing to share their data and information in exchange for some good or benefit. What are some good examples of this trade-off that you've seen?
So first, I think, you know, being ethical and having concerns, especially with people's data, is paramount, right? There's a reason why we see data privacy and exploitation that's happening. You know, Facebook and other big social media companies are having breaches or using the data in a way that is not being welcomed by the user. Like I'm only seeing everything if I'm on a left-wing site, then I only see left-wing things. If I'm on the right wing, I only see right wings. If I'm a conspiracy theorist, I only see conspiracy theories. I think we need to be much smarter about how we leverage data to get that. As an organization, you should ask yourself, you know, how am I going to use this data, not for my own betterment, but to ensure it's being used responsibly so that I can provide my consumer with the right experience.
Right.
Right? And it's not about me. It's not about me as an enterprise. It's about the consumer and the person who I'm delivering the experience for, how I can do that, right? So you need to show both sides of the coin.
Totally. And I think on the sustainability note, like I definitely agree. Like if you can, for example, like I want my ads to be customized for me. I don't care about like if I see an ad about, I don't know, like financial services, like I don't need to get a bank account right now. I do have a bank account, but I don't like really, the app sucks. Like back on that digital meshing, it's really bad.
I know.
It's,
a lot of financial institutions are being very slow to respond, and
it's crazy.
There's other startups that are coming and starting to eat their lunch.
Absolutely, no. That was a bad example, but anyway, I want to see relevant ads to me, and I think just personalization is just so important. And then back to like looking at companies and how they value sustainability, I make sure like my spending aligns with this and like where I'm going. And North Face and Patagonia are 2 examples of that, where they're investing in like environmental concerns. It's like, I care about that a lot. So if creativity is becoming more important for consumers, how can enterprise organizations neatly blend the creative with the commerce?
So I love the example of using Etsy here.
Yeah.
Like if you look at Etsy, they've created this awesome place that everyone who goes there feels like something's being made just for them.
Right.
It's like that one-to-one experience that they're doing. And things need to be beautiful and work. I mean, you just said this financial services example.
Oh, God.
The bar is just getting higher and higher. As other startups who are quicker to the game, you know, could come out and start launching services and features, that just becomes a standard. It's not, you're not looking at it going, how come this company is doing it right? You're not going to give them credit for it. You're just expecting that to happen.
Totally.
You know, financial apps, like I log into my banking app, it's not intuitive, it's slow, it lags, I get frustrated. It becomes a barrier to engage with my bank. You know, for example, one of the major banks that we work with, you know, as soon as the iPhone 10 came out, they had facial recognition. They had an app that didn't fall behind. It leveraged the larger screens, and they did this and they stayed relevant and they ended up gaining customers because they did it right. You know, and if you look at, you know, if I take another big 5 Canadian bank, I just think just recently they finally got out of the iPhone 5 screen and started saying, okay, we could actually make a bigger screen. And it wasn't looking, and it still looked clunky and like old and felt like you were in like some DOS mode of banking. So you got to be able to do it right.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's not just about, you know, slow internet anymore that's making things slow. This is exactly where I think you have to dig in deep on the architecture and understand the development practices and the this is like mixed music with APIs and all the data
Right.
coming in. And when something's not coming up quickly, it might be because, you've got too much data on, sort of one layer or something like that.
Right.
Or the systems aren't talking to each other seamlessly. And so unwinding all of that and understanding the architecture is what's going to make these apps run faster and more intuitive.
Absolutely.
Oh, the
Yeah.
design and the UI, that's all a given. It's got to be beautiful,
absolutely.
right?
Like for me, like all my apps on my phone, there's so many apps on the App Store, but the ones I have are the prettiest ones. Like for example, definitely UI and like wealth symbol. That makes me want to do banking. It's so pretty.
Right.
Okay, so moving on to our next bucket here, technology. We sort of already started that.
Yeah.
So Isabella, so the technologies, what are you seeing out there, and
Yeah.
all the conferences and stuff you're going to? You're pretty exposed. So
Yeah.
what are the drivers and most influential?
Well, one I get really excited about is machine learning, how we can ultra personalize everything, get a bunch of data and analytics. I also think VR, AR, like meshing, literally creating a virtual world for people and like bringing it into the real world, augmented reality as well. I think there's just so many endless possibilities with emerging technologies that it's stupid if companies don't want to like latch onto them and go through this whole emerging phase.
So Sheetal, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, definitely location. I mean, being
Yeah.
location aware and leveraging that can do a lot of things, right? It really could fix a lot of things for you. If you take a look at Nest and knowing that I'm coming home soon and I haven't been there for a while, want to turn on my air conditioner or whatever it may be. And just natural things that start happening that, wayfinding, as we talked about through malls and it alerting you. It would be cool if, I go to the Dubai Mall a lot because we have an office there, and, if I'm walking through the Dubai Mall and I always got to go in and try to wayfind my way through that huge mall. And if I'm walking to a store that's 10 minutes away, but I happen to be walking near the fountains and the fountain show's about to start, I'm a sucker for loving that. I love watching that show. And like if something pops up and says, hey, Sheetal, the fountain show's about to start in 5 minutes. Why don't you detour for a little bit and watch that? And we'll take you on your way. And so these are the types of experiences we're really looking at. And then there's the cruise ship stuff. Being able to have like this open table type experience of that. Not only am I booking a restaurant, or if I'm on a wait list for a restaurant, now I don't got to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning on a cruise ship, go line up with everybody else, try to get my name for that one a la carte restaurant we all want to eat. Right? I can try to go on the app. If I'm on a wait list and I'm nearby the restaurant can ping me and say, hey, you know what, you're off the wait list. Come on in. We got dinner for you. And so that's a huge thing. And then it's voice. I mean, being able to interpret natural language as you are going on your day-to-day and just being able to speak to things and having then that happen, right? Yeah. Like just by speaking, I think is a huge other element that needs to start being more and more leveraged.
Yeah, and for me, that really adds up to be IoT is an underlying factor in all of that, which just means things are talking to each other properly and seamlessly. And it's a recurring sort of theme here today is you've got to have the REST APIs for real-time data, keeps everything fresh. So why don't we move on to our next one there, Sheetal?
Sure. So how do organizations use location services, Chris, so their users can better engage and interact with the physical world? I mean, we've been talking a lot about it. What have you been seeing? Like, and how do you see location services playing a role with the information that we've got on GenZ?
Well, first of all, it's now just finally starting to happen. I mean, there's been probably 3 or 4 years of pilots and proof of concepts, and maybe one mall would have it out of an enterprise. We're starting to see that being more, I guess, ubiquitously rolled out, which makes it possible to deliver on these promises that we're talking about. As I mentioned, it's a center of personalization. Context is basically everything. Where am I? What's going to be in my path as I walk through this building? And it's now, it's just allowing us to do things that we could never do before, that we basically probably been doing in our cars and outside for a long time. And so we have this expectation that it's going to work like that inside. So to make that work, it really takes a lot of thought. I mean, not one size fits all for an organization, even across, it could be some are going to use Wi-Fi, some are going to use beacons. It's all about the use case, how much accuracy do you need? So this is really where the solutioning comes in, and starting with the use case rather than the technology. And always you've got to think about privacy and consent, because that's becoming a big thing as well. Like not everybody is Isabella where you're going to be willing to go on and make your data available. Unions, for example, and offices and stuff like that may have different sort of standards. So
with all these like Gen Z traits, how should digital products be built going forward?
Products need to be very clear, concise, and seamless. The products you interact with do only 3 to 5 things well.
Yeah.
And we start seeing more and more digital products that are being bloated with extra features that aren't used. It creates a clunky UI experience. Investment dollars into the product are going to areas that aren't necessarily working. So have your personalization, have your product manager inside your organization be the voice of the customer. Have that person continuously speaking to your consumers, seeing what's being used, what do they want to see, and then go test that. And you got to do that right at the strategy stage. Do that in your user research. Validate the user journey, test it, and then go back to the table and then start figuring out what to build. Don't just rush to build.
Yeah.
Get prototypes going
Totally.
and start leveraging that to move forward.
Yeah.
So, and I get the journey part, and we don't want people to start from the just the technology. Why do projects fail? I mean, we've seen obviously lots of successes, but why do they fail? And what are some of the sort of earmarks of something that's definitely not going to work?
I've seen it all. Let's say that. I got a lot of battle scars on me. But for many reasons, stakeholders, don't validate ideas or align. They start to fail from the beginning. They need to use lean methodologies to ensure everyone's on the same page. They get too long. They get caught in paperwork. We set out business requirements and we say, okay, this is what we want to build, and it took us 8 months to figure that out. And then we go to build, and then we release something that we thought 2 years ago was a good idea 2 years later. And so you need to be lean and agile. Next. They aren't set up for success. Products are being built without being validated. They need to enter the market early, gain feedback, and then iterate on that. So constantly just being able to send products out and iterating are the ones that win. And then last but not least, have the right people in the process, and the right platforms. Making sure your people are highly skilled and understand this new way of building. Fixing your processes so they're not old and archaic and you don't have to go to 20 meetings to get something small done that we see in large organizations. And your tool set. What's going to be the tool set that moves forward? And Chris, just something that we've been seeing more and more of is companies looking at what's going to be our platform that runs our tech for the future. Let all of our legacy components and investments that we've made sit underneath. How could we build company X's platform so we can build scalable apps on top of that? Was serverless architecture, things like that, is what we're seeing more and more of.
Yeah, and I think that culture match between we'll call it at the beginning client vendor, it's really a partnership. Yeah. And once you get into the project, you're all on the same team. So if you're out there thinking about a project that you're going to start, do you want to be working with companies that are releasing every week or every 2 weeks or every 4 months? There is no probably true right answer, but there does have to be a matchup between the culture, and I think that's where TribalScale's sort of whole innovation on how you think and how you innovate, as a team. So to change the way you're thinking, because if you're not going to have the ability to iterate and pivot and change things, you're probably going to get left behind. It might not be a fail on the first project, but everything evolves after that.
Everything evolves, absolutely.
We've been kind of talking about like Gen Z and experiences and how like retail, hospitality, travel, we're going to design those around experiences. How do you see this going forward, and is this just a fad?
Well, we don't know. It doesn't look like it. My perception today, and please keep me honest, is that Gen Z is engaging with apps that like malls and movie apps and brands that you really have a close affinity to. But what I think is going to happen, and maybe it's already starting to happen, is that it's starting to move to more like everyday experiences such as banking, insurance, things that I would have never engaged with at your age. It would have been totally intimidating to go open an investment account at a bank and talk to a portfolio manager or something like that. But you could just go download Wealthsimple and get going. So first of all, am I accurate on what you're doing today? And what are the sort of things are you doing that's on the outside edge of not just fun brand stuff?
Yeah, I think there's like so many festivals and concerts, and those are like really interesting where we get to do different things. One of the ones that really comes to mind is the C2 Commerce and Creativity Conference in Montreal. Every May, and I was recently there as one of the 7 under 17 innovators, and it was super exciting because like it wasn't just solely on the content of the experience. It was all about like the circus players. There was goat yoga. There was tons of really awesome stuff.
There you go. If you want people to show up, you gotta have goat yoga.
Goat yoga, yeah. That's
I think that just might be a fad.
Really? Yeah, it was really exciting. But it was always thinking outside of the box. Like, there was tons of workshops, but they weren't like your regular like do a presentation workshop. Like you got blindfolded and you had to like do a bunch of like games and like leadership things. It was really interesting. And I think constantly thinking about outside of the box and evolving companies with all these interesting experiences would be ideal.
Yeah, cool. Sheetal, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, organizations are always asking us, how do we not be the fad? How do we be authentic?
Right.
You know, like if you look at HQ Trivia, they gamified an amazing experience. You share it with your friends. It did everything we were just talking about, and then after 6 months, like nobody uses it, right? So clients will keep asking us, how do we keep up with this generation and create something that's going to continuously engage them? It's why lean principles and feedback and building short iterative cycles is so important.
Yeah.
All right, so getting near the end here, let's talk about how you're going to plan for success. So, we're going to just sort of sum it up in terms of the things, the key takeaways of the webinar today. First thing is, I think what we're hearing is you have to adopt a customer-first mindset. So create the problem statements that reflect the customer needs, not what you're trying to. Obviously, there's two agendas here.
Yeah.
But you've got to have a forward-facing sort of customer addressing sort of app or whatever engagement you're going to have, and then you'll drive the business value that will bring all the revenue and everything afterwards. So that's first. And when certainly what you'd be prepared to do with TribalScale here is when your customers change, you got to pivot. You've seen a lot of that. I'm sure.
This is why lean and agile are some of the most beneficial ways to work. It allows you to pivot without needing to scrap all your work effort, and it's okay to fail fast.
I see those stickers on your computers here, everybody. Fail fast, but don't make it too expensive.
Exactly. If you're failing fast, then you're not making it expensive. It's the big failures when you waste 8 months of time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That make it expensive, yeah.
And last but not least, you have to invest in the tools and the structures to do all of these things. So you have to have lean processes. You've got to have, in the case of where you're doing location services, you have to really set that up so that it's there for, the people that want to create the use cases. They're going to have the infrastructure to do it. All right, so we've been talking a lot today, and some of it's kind of theoretical and maybe a lot of new information, just getting to know who is Gen Z. If you really want to learn about, sort of what's possible, we'd love to offer you with TribalScale and JibeStream together, or either on our own, just to do a discovery workshop and flush out the requirements and start with what you're trying to do, and then we can make a plan for you. And even if it's a no obligation, if you are just thinking about getting started and you're going to be obviously looking at the market, at least you'll have a great set of requirements to get started, and we'd love to help you out with that. So, Jody, with that, I think we'll close out.
Well, then thank you so much, Chris, Sheetal, and Isabella. This has been a really great webinar, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you found the session informative. We have had a bunch of questions come in, so we have a few more minutes. I'm gonna go with those. The first one, I guess, is best for Sheetal and Chris. What do you think the future of collaboration between different industries looks like? Do you think there's going to be a need for more cross-industry collaboration?
I could start there. I just got back from Detroit this morning, and I was talking to a bunch of automakers. And as you look at autonomous vehicles coming up, they're really connecting with, now you're going to have time in the car, and what are you going to do? So they want to go connect with media companies, they want to go kind of connect with education companies, they want to go connect with anybody out there who's going to be able to make our time in the car being productive. And so it's definitely going to start going cross industry.
Absolutely, I never even thought of that. That's a great insight.
I just came fresh.
For us, our last webinar with Mall of America, their CIO Jeanette there was talking about how they were cross collaborating with the casino and the airport and all these different stadiums and stuff like that, because really they're all you are all sharing the same infrastructure in many cases. You need location, you need all this data coming in, and learning from each other. What vendors to work with, what worked, what didn't work. It sort of reminds me of the CEO network that Sheetal and I belong to, where you get together and you talk about things, and some of it's sort of commiseration and some of it's new ideas, and that's where the ideas are born. And there's a lot of competition within segments that they don't want to share secrets, but I think that opens up sort of the doors to better collaboration.
Yeah, so how does Gen Z view privacy issues and concerns that are related to location-based smart device service enhancements?
I'll let Isabella go.
Yeah, like I think it's really the idea of are you giving your data for a benefit? Because if you're getting like, for example, Snap Maps is a good example where you have like all these like emoji things and you can see where your friends are at and it's kind of fun. And so I don't really think about location services too much, and I think it's really the trade-off. If you're getting a product or service or whatever that is enjoyable, adds value to your life, then it's cool.
How about if your parents got that view as well of real-time location? Of
Yeah, like
Don't
that.
put her on the spot like that.
I'm a good kid, so it's cool.
Oh, there you go.